Picture this. Hundreds of warriors standing shoulder to shoulder, shields locked, spears forward, holding a mountain pass against an army so vast it was said to darken the sky. They do not retreat. They do not break. And when the battle is over, their name echoes through the next 2,500 years. But the Spartan was not simply a man with a spear and a shield. He was the product of one of history's most extreme military systems, engineered from childhood to fight in formation, to trust the warrior beside him, and to hold the line when every instinct said run. Today, we deconstruct the Spartan, their weapons, their training, their tactics, and the truth behind ancient Greece's most legendary warriors. To understand what made the Spartan warrior so formidable, you have to understand the world that built him. Ancient Greece was not a unified nation. It was a patchwork of rival city-states, Athens, Corinth, Thebes, and dozens of others, each competing for land, trade, and power. War was not an occasional event in this world. It was a constant. And in that environment, every city-state needed soldiers. Most of them raised armies when they had to, trained men when time allowed, and sent them home when the fighting was done. Sparta did something different. Sparta decided that the soldier was not a role a man stepped into when called upon. The soldier was everything a Spartan man was, from the moment he could walk to the day he died. Sparta sits in the southern region of Greece known as the Peloponnese, in a valley surrounded by mountains that gave the city a natural layer of defense. But geography alone did not make Sparta powerful. What made Sparta powerful was a decision, a deliberate society-wide choice to organize an entire civilization around one purpose, producing the most effective warriors in the ancient world. Every law, every ritual, every social structure in Sparta pointed toward that goal. The result was a city-state that had no great temples to rival Athens, no famous philosophers, no celebrated playwrights. What it had was an army that the rest of Greece feared. But there is something important to understand before we go further. The Spartan warrior did not exist in isolation. He was not simply a physically powerful man who picked up a spear. He was the output of a system, a carefully designed military machine that began reshaping a boy's body and mind years before he ever stood in a battle line. That system had a name. The Greeks called it the Agoge, and it was unlike anything else in the ancient world. It was the engine that produced the Spartan soldier, and to understand why Spartans fought the way they did, why they held formations when other men broke, why they were feared not just for their strength but for their discipline. You have to understand what that system demanded of the men who went through it and what it cost them to come out the other side. The Agoge began not at the age of 7, not at the age of 10, but at birth. A Spartan infant was brought before a council of elders shortly after it was born. They examined the child. If they judged it strong enough to become a soldier, it was allowed to live. If they judged it weak, it was left on the slopes of a nearby mountain. This was not cruelty for its own sake, at least not in the minds of the Spartans who practiced it. It was the first filter in a system designed to produce only one thing: warriors capable of surviving what came next. At 7 years old, boys were taken from their families and placed into the Agoge. Not enrolled, taken. From that moment, home was no longer a house with a mother and a father. Home was the training pack, the group of boys they would eat with, sleep with, compete against, and eventually fight beside. They were given minimal food, deliberately so, because the Agoge did not want well-fed boys. It wanted boys who learned to think under hunger, to move under discomfort, to endure when every part of their body was telling them to stop. They were encouraged to steal food to supplement their rations. But if they were caught, they were punished, not for stealing, but for being caught. The lesson was not honesty. The lesson was competence under pressure. The physical training was relentless: running, wrestling, weapons drills, long marches across rough terrain, carried out through heat, cold, and exhaustion. Boys were made to sleep on beds of reeds they cut themselves from the banks of the Eurotas River, without cushioning, without comfort. They were given a single cloak to wear through the year, regardless of season. They fought each other. They were beaten. They were pushed until they found where their limits were, and then they were pushed past those limits until new ones formed. Weakness was not simply discouraged in the Agoge. It was systematically removed. But here is what separated the Agoge from simple brutality. The suffering was never random. Every element of it had a purpose. Boys were not just being hardened physically, they were being taught something far more important, that the man beside you is the only thing standing between you and collapse. The Agoge built soldiers who did not fight for personal glory. It built soldiers who fought for the formation. And that distinction, as we are about to see, is exactly what made the Spartan warrior so dangerous on an ancient battlefield. The weapon that made that formation possible was not the spear, and it was not the sword. It was the shield. The Spartan aspis, a large round shield roughly a meter across, constructed from wood and faced with bronze, was the single most important piece of equipment a Spartan warrior carried. And the reason comes down to geometry. A Spartan's shield did not just protect himself, it extended to the left, covering the exposed right side of the man standing next to him. Every man in the line was protected by the shield of the warrior on his right, which meant the formation only worked if every man held his position. The moment one soldier broke, the man beside him was exposed, then the man beside him. The line collapsed like a chain with one broken link. This is why Spartan law treated the loss of a shield as a disgrace far worse than the loss of a sword or a spear. Those could be replaced. A man who abandoned his shield had abandoned the warrior next to him. The primary weapon of the Spartan soldier was the dory, a thrusting spear roughly 2.5 meters in length, tipped with an iron point at the front and a bronze spike at the base. That rear spike was not decorative. If the spear shaft broke in combat, a soldier could reverse it and keep fighting. If the man in front of him fell, the spike could be driven into the ground for stability. Every detail of Spartan equipment was built around the same principle: function inside a formation, not individual combat. When the dory broke entirely, or when the press of bodies became too tight to use a long spear, the Spartan reached for the xiphos, a short, double-edged iron sword, roughly 1/2 meter in length, designed not for dueling, but for close-quarters killing inside a collapsing formation. It was a weapon built for the chaos of the final push, when shields were cracking against shields and men were fighting at arm's length. The xiphos was not the Spartan's pride. It was his last option. And the fact that it was perfectly engineered for exactly that moment tells you everything about how Spartans thought about warfare. Every tool had a specific job, and every job served the formation. Completing the arsenal was the Corinthian helmet, hammered from a single sheet of bronze and shaped to enclose the entire head, leaving only a narrow opening for the eyes and mouth. It was one of the most recognizable silhouettes in the ancient world, and it was not designed to look impressive, though it did. It was designed to protect. The bronze cheek guards and nose guard reduced the surface area an enemy blade could find. The enclosed design deadened sound, narrowing a soldier's world to the few meters in front of him, which, inside a phalanx, was exactly where his attention needed to be. If this breakdown changed how you see the Spartan warrior, hit subscribe. There are more legendary warriors left to deconstruct.